The storm in the Minnesota forest raged with full force. The biting wind made the cabins would creak, and the snow fell relentlessly, covering everything outside with an unyielding white blanket. Inside the cabin, Emma held Lily in her arms, the baby still sleeping peacefully, but something felt wrong. It wasn't just the cold outside, there was a strange and uncomfortable feeling that took hold of her. Her eyes moved nervously across the window, where the darkness seemed to swallow everything. Fear was in the air, and she couldn't explain why. Daniel stood beside her, staring out into the storm, his eyes fixed on the darkness extending beyond the cabin. The tension in his posture was evident. "I'm going to check the generator," he said, his voice calm, but unable to hide the apprehension. Emma nodded, but the feeling of something terrible happening didn't go away. When Daniel opened the door and stepped outside, a deep silence fell over the night. There was no wind, no nocturnal sounds that normally broke the quiet of the forest. The woods were still. Emma looked outside, and what she saw made her heart race. The snow swirled slowly as a massive figure emerged from the darkness. A huge bear stood on its hind legs, banging against the cabin wall with a dull, threatening sound. But it wasn't alone. Two trembling cubs, fragile and scared, huddled close to it, seeking protection. Emma's stomach churned. She knew what this meant. Bears don't approach a cabin without reason. Something more was happening, something wrong. She looked at Daniel, who stood frozen, his eyes wide. Fear took over his face, and he stepped away from the door, his skin paling. "This isn't normal, Emma," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I've never seen anything like this." Before she could respond, what seemed to be another mother bear appeared to the left, dragging a wounded cub, limping toward the cabin. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't just hunger that had brought them here. There was something more, something she couldn't understand, but felt with every fiber of her being. The tension built. Daniel looked at Emma, his eyes reflecting the same fear. He cautiously approached the window, his fingers trembling. "What are they doing here?" he asked quietly, as if not believing what he was seeing. "They aren't here by accident." Emma fixed her gaze on the bears. The larger mother bear lifted her head and made a sound that, unlike any other wild animal noise, almost seemed human. It was as if she was calling, or maybe responding to something. As if she was answering Lily's cry. Emma's fear intensified. "They're here because they need help," she said, her voice tense. "They wouldn't be so close if they didn't need something." She knew she was speaking more to herself than to Daniel, but the words felt like an uncomfortable truth. But Daniel wasn't convinced. "They're wild animals, Emma. This isn't a call for help. They might be a threat." He grabbed the rifle hanging on the wall, his eyes narrowing in distrust. "Look at them," Emma said, pointing through the window. "They're not attacking. They've shown no aggression. They're asking for something. Something we can help with." The bears were now at the door. The larger mother bear leaned down, gently pushing the wounded cub toward the cabin door. The movement was careful, almost human, as if she was asking for something. But what exactly did she want? Emma's instinct screamed for her to step back, to lock the door and keep Lily away from danger. But there was something in the mother bear's behavior that made her hesitate. Something she couldn't explain, but it felt like a plea. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wide with concern. "They need help. We can't leave them out there." Daniel hesitated, his eyes conflicted. He looked at the rifle, the door, and then back at Emma. "What if they're dangerous?" he said, his voice weaker now. "We can't take the risk, Emma. They could be luring us into an attack." At that moment, Lily's cry, louder now, pierced the silence, reverberating through the cabin. The sound of the cry echoed through the night, and the bears reacted immediately. The larger mother bear raised her head, her eyes fixed on the window where Emma and Daniel stood, as if she knew the sound was coming from the baby. Then, something unusual happened. The mother bear made another sound softer, a low groan that almost seemed like she was trying to calm the baby. It was the same sound she used with her own cubs. Emma froze. "She is responding to Lily," she said, her eyes fixed on the massive figure of the bear. What once seemed like a nightmare was becoming more and more real. Emma knew she couldn't leave the bears outside, but she also didn't know if she could trust them. She looked at Daniel. "They're not attacking. They're not here to hurt us. They're hungry, and the cub is hurt." The tension in the air was palpable. The weight of the decision was on them. Daniel looked at the bears, at the door, and then back at Emma. Maybe you're right. We need to help them. But if something goes wrong, you and Lily need to leave immediately. Emma grabbed Lily in her arms and walked slowly to the door, her heart racing uncontrollably. She opened the door quietly, not making a sound. The bears, with their cubs, stood still watching, their eyes fixed on her. Emma made a hesitant move, but with a motherly impulse. Okay. We'll help. Suddenly, the sound of a distant gunshot cut through the night. The bears stirred, but they didn't run. Instead, they moved closer to the door, almost desperately, as if seeking protection. Daniel froze, his hand still on the rifle, but the bears didn't seem threatening. They were looking for something that wasn't clear. They're scared, Daniel. They're here because they have no other choice. Shock, anxiety, and fear filled the air. Emma opened the shed door with a firm motion, and the bears, with their cubs, slowly entered. When the mother bear looked at her, there was a moment of contact, a moment where the mother bear's eyes met Emma's. It was a plea, a request for help, something Emma understood without words. The mother bear gently licked the wounded cub, a gesture of care beyond understanding. Emma felt a connection with the animal that she had never imagined. She carefully tended to the cub, removing the trap fragment and cleaning the wound with a gentleness only a mother could show. The cub calmed down, and the mother bear, who had once seemed so fierce, now appeared calm, as if she knew she had found help. When Emma stepped back, the mother bear looked at her one last time, and then without a word, they turned and disappeared into the night's darkness. Emma closed the shed door, her heart racing. This isn't over, Daniel. They might come back. We need to be ready. As she thought, the distant sound of hunters approaching cut through the air. The fear of being discovered hung in every breath. Emma made a silent promise to herself. She would not let these bears suffer again.